G'day everybody, it's Buddy from Spuds Games. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to go out and find ourselves a scrap CRT and turn it into an awesome gaming CRT. Stay tuned. So quickly, just to describe what goes in my area, every 3 months or so, everyone gets the opportunity to chuck all their crap from their house out on the curb. Council trucks come along, pick it up, take it off to the tip for you, free of charge. Essentially, it's like a big household cleanup. You get 3 or 4 times a year. Now, a lot of the times, I've found old video games, old board games, old computers in these council cleanups. So they are a bit of a gold mine for collectors, but you have to be quick because the copper scrappers get in there, cut cords off everything, and essentially just take whatever they can scrap. So what we're on the hunt for today is we're going to be doing a CRT mod, or essentially turning an old crappy CRT that people were just chucking away. It was going to the tip, never to be used again, probably recycled, crushed, whatever. And we're going to turn it into what might be a very basic CRT that no one wants, into an awesome gaming CRT. So without further ado, let's jump in the car, head off to the area where where everyone's chucking all the stuff out. There will be a lot of driving. I'm not going to record all the driving and whatnot, but if I find something, I'll certainly turn the camera on and we'll see what we can find. Let's go. As you see, I'm on a main road here. This is a council cleanup. There's one up the road there, you can't really see at the moment. I've had to stop and turn around and whatnot. It looks like a black Sony. So I'm just going to pull over, grab it, and I'll show you what I've got. So here we are. Apologies for the noise. I'm on a main road here, so I'll just quickly do this. 29-inch Sony. It's a BG1S chassis. No remote. The bit's broken off the front. It does look like it has stereo sound, does it? Or maybe mono sound. Looking at that, or left mono, right. Oh, anyway, it's a BG1S chassis. I'll have a look at the service manual, but it's a nice 29-inch BG1S chassis. Perfect for what I plan on doing. So here it is. Hey, she's a big girl, this one. 29 inches, heavy as all hell, trying to get this thing up on the bench, but much easier to work up on the bench. Now, part number for this is a KVT 29SZ8. Now, that's a BG1S chassis. I'm not sure if it's got stereo or mono sound. It definitely has left-right channels, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's only got mono sound from the looks of it. So I'll pull up the service manual, we'll have a look at it. But before I go any further, I'll grab the camera off the tripod. We'll do a bit of a walk around. It doesn't have a power cord, so I'm going to have to put a power cord on it. I don't really want to go and start RGB modding anything, obviously, till I test to see if this thing works. It didn't come with the remote, couldn't find the remote. I've got a spare one upstairs, so I'll just grab that one from the attic upstairs. It doesn't have the cover on the front, but this video is not about finding a perfect CRT. You know, this is about grabbing something for free, something someone's going to chuck out and turning it into something awesome. So hopefully the gods will be in our favour, and this thing will work. I'll go and grab the remote, grab the camera off the tripod, and let's do a walk around. So here we are with it. He said it's not in bad condition. A couple of things that are in our favour. There's no chips in the glass, so that's a good thing. It does have a couple of marks on there, but they'll clean up. Look down at the front here. Obviously got the on-off button. Couple of LEDs. We have a headphone jack. We've also got composite video on the front, as well as a couple of programming buttons. So we'll come round. As I said, it is a bit dusty. Let's have a look at the back. Now it's got cobwebs and spider webs on it, but that's to be expected. I mean, wasn't expecting anything perfect. We come down to the back. There's the model number. KVT 29SZ8, as I said, a BG1S chassis, so if this thing does work, it should be a fairly easy mod. You know, we've got the fairly standard sort of terminals on the back. You can see all the spider webs there. We'll clean them up. But this only does composite at this stage, so but hopefully we can fix that up. So what I'll do now is we'll pull the back off, we'll have a look at what the inside's like, and we'll throw a power cord on it and grab a remote and see what we can find. So I've got the back off now. It's a little bit dusty inside, but certainly not the worst I've ever seen. You know, it's not grotty or super dirty. Can do with a bit of a clean. And straight away I can't really notice any components that have, gone kaput or bust. Just looking at the capacitors, they look okay. Yeah, there's nothing really stands out for me to go, hey, you better watch out for that. I can't see any burn marks or anything like that. Interesting, these, you know, these up here, whether they're regulators or transistors or whatever they are. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but they're really terribly mounted. Anyway, it's really high. I'm assuming that's, I don't even know why they would do that, but it's, anyway, it doesn't look the best, but yeah, I mean, as I said, it's not the dirtiest one I've ever seen. It's a bit dusty, but I think I could clean this up with a paintbrush and a bit of air. And you can see where I've just moved some dust there. That's where we'll be tapping in with the RGB if this works. You know, provides a nice little spot. And see if I can just zoom in. You see there it says RGB blank and ground. So that's what I do like about these particular chassis. Make it really easy for an RGB mod. Anyway, so that's a bit of a look inside. If anyone's interested, the tube number, there it is there, the part number. 68 centimetre, obviously. It says 29 inch, which is not actually 68 centimetres, but the way Sony do their part numbers, I think 29 inch is the actual tube size, and 68 centimetres is the viewing size, or something like that. Or maybe it's back to front, I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, everything looks okay. We'll go ahead and we'll whack a power cord on it and see if this thing powers up. You can see here the power cord stops about there. So anyway, we'll just I'll just temporarily put one on there and just see if we can power it up. If it works, then I'll put something more permanent on. So we're back again. I'll just move around to the back of the TV. Let's CRT. So you can just see what I've done there. Where the cable was broken, I've just put this little junction box in there. This has just got some through terminals, some big brass through terminals on it. So I've just joined it into a standard, you know, the old, cut the end off a, you can see the end of it there. Cut the end off a pretty, you know, common figure 8 cable. Colours match up to the colours that are on the cable that come with the CRT. Plugged it in, haven't turned it on yet. This will be interesting. So let's go around and we'll give it a test. The front, hopefully it turns on. I said, let's stand back. You never know with these things what's going to happen. So it turns on. There's degas there. You might not have heard that, but definitely come on. I haven't got any picture yet. Oh, here we go. So we can see video 1. Let's see if we get any snow. The analog signal, video 2. Oh, turn it down. And there we go. It seems to work just fine. Can't see any purity issues in the corners. They look okay. It's handy when some of these old ones have, the bigger ones have a blue screen for the video. This one has a black screen. When it's a blue screen, it picks up the purity issues really well, but having a black screen, not so much. But in saying that, turns on, works. Beautiful. On to the next step. So I'll go and find, I might throw a 240p test suite on it just in composite and see what the colours and stuff are like. So here we are, I've just plugged the PlayStation in on the 240p test suite, just have a look at the geometry. It's actually pretty good, the geometry. There is looks like a couple of convergence issues, or not couple, but you know, you probably see a little bit of up there in the corner, and also a little bit of blue up there in that corner. But the geometry, and you've got to remember this is in composite as well, I haven't RGB modded this yet. That geometry is pretty bloody good for such a big TV. Certainly can't complain, put it that way. Okay, well, I'm going to grab the remote. You probably don't even need to grab the remote. I might just go ahead and mod this and see what we come up with. So just before I go ahead and mod this, what I wanted to show you guys is how to fix that convergence issue. You can see there, compared to what it was, so much better. Now this is in composite, so I'll probably have to redo this in RGB anyway. But I just wanted to show you how I do it and how it should be done in the easiest way. So if you ever find a dud CRT, there's things you can salvage off it, and one thing you need to salvage off it are these things. These are convergence strips. Okay, and they've got a magnet on one end and a double-sided tape on the other to stick it down. Now you can see here, and I've only done this temporarily, the two convergence strips there that I've added in underneath the yoke. Okay, and what this allows me to do is move the pitch around and line everything back up. So what I'll do is I'll just move the camera around to the front, and you can see, I'll move these around because I'll just put them back. So you'll see what I mean. Let's grab one here. You can see, hopefully you see that corner moving. That's what it does. It lines everything back up again. And that's where they come in really handy. So what I'll do is I'll mod this. I'll probably have to redo it again in RGB. But you can see that's got rid of the, well, there's a little bit there back, and I'll just adjust them back again. But you can see how effective they are. So always, if you get a dud CRT, it doesn't work, before you throw it out, rip these off because they come in super handy. So before we actually move on to the modification, let's talk about what's going to happen. I've showed you where the RGB lines are going to go into, and the reason we can directly tap into those lines is because the jungle IC is accepting or expecting a 0 to 0.7 peak to peak voltage on those RGB ins on the particular terminals on the jungle. So, which is good because that marries up to RGB SCART for all your old consoles. Some CRTs using those RGB ins expect a 0.5, but some are even the newer model, or the silver Sonys with the flat screen CRTs. Still easy to RGB mod, but those jungles want a totally different voltage, and they're kind of muxed in with the OSD, and that's where you're going to need to use Mark Oslad's mux method to RGB mod those. So that's why it's critical to find out what that jungle chip is and how it's wired up, and that way, once you find all that out, it's much easier to do the modification. So this one is a TDA 8375A chip. I've modified a heap of these. And straight away I know that this is a 0.2 to 0.7 peak to peak voltage, RGB voltage, which is great because that marries straight up to our older consoles. That's what RGB SCART is. The only other thing we've got to make sure of is the blanking voltage, and if I refer to the service manual, the blanking voltage on this particular jungle is expecting a minimum of 0.9 for data insertion, and then insertion of 3 volts maximum. So if I can get to 2.5 volts, then I should have no issues blanking this into RGB mode. The easiest way to do this is there's usually a 5 volt regulator in all these CRTs, whether it's the new Wager silver style flat CRTs or whether it's these older black more rounded tubes. They always have this IC 00, sometimes it's 001, sometimes it's 008, sometimes it's 003. But they're all a 5 volt regulator. So I'll tap into the leg 8 of that, and that will give me 5 volts. Now I need 2.5 volts, so I'll just create a voltage divider at the switch. So that's 2 resistors in series, and you tap off the middle. So if I've got 5 volts, I'm effectively going to voltage divide it in half down to 2.5 volts. Now I'll show you what that looks like when I've actually done the modification and show you how that acts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do before we go, the easiest way to do these modifications on these massive CRTs, just lay them down on the glass. When I say lay them down on the glass, obviously not flat on timber or concrete. Put a nice thick towel down, but just lay them down because you do need access to underneath the circuit board. And rather than try and pull the chassis out, circuit board out, and try and disconnect things, leave it all connected. Just push the tube over onto a towel. Make sure it's a nice soft towel, and you won't. These things are really robust. You're not going to bust the tube or anything like that. And the towel will just cushion it and also save you from scratching up the tube. But that's definitely the easiest way I find to get access to the bottom of the particular main PCB, so we can tap into those RGB lines. So this is what I'm talking about. Flipping it over onto its screen. There's a nice thick double. I've got a big thick bath mat, a dry bath mat obviously, and it's doubled over on itself, and it's really cushioned. So protecting the tube from any scratches and whatnot, but it gives me good access to get underneath the circuit board, and I'll show you why now I need access to underneath rather than just on top. So this is what it looks like underneath. And where we need to go is over here. Now you can see I've actually already soldered into the particular spots on there. Let me just zoom in a bit. Apologies for the camera shake. you can see there RGB, blanking and ground. So that's my points there that I've soldered already into. But that's why you need access to underneath, is to be able to get to those particular points. Now, those points, as you can see there, they actually already have solder on them. So you're going to need to lift that up with some solder braid, get to the access to the hole that's there, and then solder the cables in. Now, further to that, the IC chip, that you can't really see it, and I don't lift the circuit board back up again, but it's underneath. I'll see if the camera will focus. I'll just zoom back out. So it's underneath here. So you do need to lift the circuit board up. To do that, there's just a couple of clips in the side here. You can see me levering that out. So you lever that out, there's one on the other side, and this whole PCB will lift up. Now what I do is I get a bit of wedge, cardboard wedge or whatever, and just wedge it in there to hold it in place while I get access to the chip or the regulator that's underneath, sort of in between the PCB and the bottom of the CRT frame. So it is a bit of a pain to get to it, but that's probably the safest spot to get a 5-volt signal from. Yeah, so that's what it looks like underneath, and that's why you need access to get underneath. So once you're done, you can flip the CRT back over because you don't need to come back underneath. So this is what the mod looks like with the cables at the top there. I'll just zoom in. You can see there, hopefully that'll focus in. There we go, nicely focused in. Actually, you can see the red's popped up a little bit, so I'll just have to fix that, flip it back over and push that down a bit more. It is soldered in, but I just don't like that sitting up like that. I want it more flush. But there it is, red, green, blue. Blanking, I use white, and in ground I use the sort of greenish yellow cable there. It gives you a good indication of how much dust is in this thing, so I need to give it a good clean as well. But I'll do that after everything's done, and then I'll blow it all out. So that's what it looks like now. There is also, you'll see this other white cable. So this is the cable that comes from underneath. I've just found a hole that's actually in the PCB, just to poke it back up through, and it's over there now with it. So the 5-volt comes in from that. Plan is to do a voltage divider at the switch, which will go on the side of the CRT, and then it will feed back into this 2.5 volts into the jungle. So now I've got the cables in, tidied it up. What I'll do is I'll pop the holes for the RCA'S in the side now. Once I've done that, we'll come back and I'll show you what that looks like. Along with the blanking switch, I've just got a little toggle switch there, so that'll flick between standard composite, what the TV's used to, and also blank it into RGB mode, so when we're playing our consoles we can have it in RGB. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Once again, I'm not going to videotape me doing all that. I'll put some instructions in the comments, so if you're wondering what drill sizes and all that sort of stuff, I'll put it in there. But I just don't want this video going too long, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Once I'm done, I'll show you what it looks like. So I've just put the RCA'S in and done all the wiring for it. I've just done an example there. I think I was talking about before about making these, if you don't like these sticking out, straight out, there's these little right angle adapters you can get. I just picked these up from J-Car. They're a couple of bucks each, and they take it down a bit more flusher with the set. So with that angled piece here, and it doesn't sit too far out from the CRT, so I find that a nice neat finish. As for the wiring, I'll zoom back here. There it is there. Ignore that that's a 3-pole switch, or a 2-pole switch, sorry. You know, I don't need that, but I just had that lying around. Now the wiring does look a bit ugly. I will tidy this up, but essentially it's pretty straightforward. You can see a ground loop there, looping across the 3 grounds on the RCA'S, and then your red, green and blue go into the centerpiece or the center spot on those back of the RCA'S, and therefore we've got our connection, and you'll see between the ground and the line there's a 75 ohm resistor. Now on this blanking switch itself, that bottom one is the 5 volts in, and then I've just mocked up this little voltage divider. I will tidy it up, so don't freak out that it's going to stay like that. It was just for testing purposes to make sure everything was going to work. But yeah, 5 volts comes in through the bottom there, or the bottom connection, through that resistor and then out, but also this resistor to ground. And essentially what I've done is just divided the voltage into 2. This piece here at the top, so this one here, back it out. The cable at the top, that's the one that goes back and feeds into the spot over here into your blanking spot. So that's it. It's a pretty straightforward sort of setup for RGB. So here we are. I've turned it on and everything works great. There are some things I'll have to still sort out in regards to convergence and whatnot, but I'll run you guys through how I fix that up in a minute. So at the moment I've got this sitting in composite mode, and the way I do that is I'll just see if I can move the camera over here for you guys. You see how I've set it up. So I just use a PlayStation with a PS2 component cable. So that's PS2 component cables, and on the back of the PlayStation I have the PS2 components cables going to a gun comm adapter. And out of the side of the gun comm adapter it picks up a composite. So you'll see that there, that white one, I'm just using that as composite. Now that composite out goes into the composite at the back of the TV into, I think, video 2 or video 1, and it's the sync. So if you're doing PlayStation 1, it's an easy way of doing RGB for a PlayStation 1, just utilising a gun comm adapter, PS2 RGB cables, component cables, and then picking up sync out the side of the gun comm adapter. So just a cheater's method of doing just a quick test for RGB. So moving back to the CRT itself, I'll just line the camera back up. Just want to zoom out there a bit as well. Now I'm in composite at the moment, and you'll notice the word test patterns and the words may look a little bit flickery. I'm not sure whether that whole wavy sort of black line is coming up on the video or not, but I can see it here, but ignore that, that's not actually happening on the TV. But what is happening is that, I suppose, shimmering around the word test buttons and all the other words. Now when I flick it to RGB, I just do that by hitting the blanking button that I wired in, the 2.5 volt blanking. Hopefully those words become a lot clearer, much easier to read, and that shimmering has stopped. So we're in RGB now. The picture got a little bit darker, but it also got a lot clearer. And it just looks fantastic actually. I'm not sure whether the camera's picking that up really well or not. But it's so much different compared to what composite is. The words are easy to read, and there's no shimmering whatsoever. And there's nice, I suppose, nice colours as well. I can always turn the brightness up a bit more if I want it a little bit brighter. But I know it works, so we'll just flick it back to composite. So that's it there. You can see the test patterns are quite hard to read, quite shimmery. The words are quite shimmery. And then I'll flick it to RGB and all that stops and goes away. So the RGB mod has worked. Now what I'll do is I'll just throw up a quick test pattern on this, and then you'll see what I mean by some issues that I've got. So the main issue that I've got with this one is some convergence problems. So over in this left hand corner you'll see I can actually see red, green and blue lines up in the top, right up in the top left before it changes to red. Then over this side, I'll just zoom in a bit here, you can see the blue hasn't quite married up to the white. And that's what we call convergence problems. That's where all the RGB lines converge into one. And they're just quite not lining up. The rest of the CRT is fine. It's just this particular corner here, and I'll zoom in and show you. It's not quite lining up there. And also over in this corner here as well. But that's fixable as long as you've got the right tools. So I'll just line the camera back up, zoom it back out again, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about and what I use to fix that. So what I use to fix that little problem in the corner. A lot of people will just pull magnets off the fridge and whatnot willy-nilly, but the rule, or the proper way to fix these is with these. So these are what they call convergence strips. And on this end doesn't look like much. It actually just looks like a bit of double-sided tape, but it must be some sort of magnetic, I suppose, device, or have some magnetism in them. I've got 3 of them here. I actually got 4 of them just in case I need them. Looks like it's quite bad in that corner. So what I'm going to do is you put some double-sided tape on one end, and you need to insert this end between the glass tube and where the yoke butts up against that glass tube. They slide down in between there, and putting that magnet in there, and you'll see when I do it, it actually shifts that around. And you get it to a spot, and then you basically just leave it and stick it down onto the tube. I'll take the camera around the back to show you the ones that are already in there, and then I'll do this, and you'll see how much it improves. So here we are around the back of the TV again, and these are the strips that I was talking about. See how they slide in between the tube itself and the yoke? And that's where these will be going. So they just put them in there, slide them down, you move them around, and you'll see those lines move. And hopefully we can get them all to line back up. And you can see obviously this tube has had, well not had problems, but this is from the factory, and you can see where all these strips are. So it's the top corners that are going to have the issues. Now, these magnets might have moved, even though they're stuck down, and that's why the problem is. I don't know, but we should be able to fix it with these strips. So I'm just going to put some double-sided tape on the ones I've got. Once I do that, I'll move the camera around to the front. And as I said, I'll just do it here. I can't actually see what's happening at the front, but this is essentially what it's going to do. It's going to slide underneath the degauss. It's going to move around until I find the right spot, and then I'm just going to stick it down with double-sided tape. So just before we start, this is the double-sided tape I use. I think it's actually called Gorilla Tape. I'm just going to cut a couple of small pieces off, stick them on, ready to go. So here we are, I've just set the camera up so it's focused in on that little corner there. You can see where the colours don't line up. You've got the white, you can see some green and some blue. So we're going to chuck this in. Now this is not an exact science, okay? This does take some mucking around, and it can take some time to get this little magnet in the right spot underneath that yoke. So we'll give it a go and see how we go. It may take more than one test strip as well. So that's why I've done multiple, just to try and get this as best as I can. I'll just put it in behind, and you can already see it moving there. So I'll just try and get this in the right spot. Let's pull it out, start again. Hopefully you guys can see that on the camera moving. I can't really get in the right spot there. Maybe on this side. Oh, there we go. Let's go back up. It's not the easiest thing to do when you've got a degauss coil that you've also got a... Oh, and I've pulled one of the ones that were in there out. So I've probably just made it worse. Let's pull that back in underneath. Hopefully that fixes whatever that did that pulled out. But let's put this one back in. Oh, there we go. Right there. Now, unfortunately, you can see how much better that is now lined up. I've actually forgot to put it, oh, hang on, I'll have to tip it up a bit. You can see that corner's dipped. It looks nice and lined up, but you'll see just here, this corner's dipped a little bit here. So it takes a little bit of guesswork to try and get this right. So we'll see. I've just got to take this back out again to get underneath the coil. So here we go. Try and put it back in the same spot. There we go. That there's looking better. So I'm just going to stick it down there. Shouldn't have moved it. Start again. I think I've gone out of the wrong spot. Let's stick this down here. See if I can use one of these other ones. I'll stop it here and get one of the other ones ready. That has improved it a bit. I'll get another one ready and just use another strip. So I've just put another one in there, and you can see it's getting much better. I'm just going to try and get a third one in, just see if I can line up more, to maybe pick this corner up a little bit more. And you'll see this bit here doesn't quite line up as good either. So I'll see what I can do. I'm pretty happy with that, but I'll just see if I can, put one more in and see how we go. So I'm just going to throw this last one in. If I can't get this any better, then I'm not going to worry about putting this in and keeping it in. I'll just see how I go, to see if I can just get that little bit more improvement out of it. See, I'm sort of working more down the side now. I think that's pretty good. It's a hell of a lot better than what it was. Pull it out and I'll just try one more spot. I'm just going to stick it there. I think that's pretty good. It does drop a little bit in that corner. Maybe I can pick it up again. I mean, it's going to be a case of how many convergence strips do I want to use. I'll just see how many more I've got. I think I've got one more here. And I'll just check how many I've got in the tub. Make sure I've got enough for the other side. So I'm going to do one more just along the top because I've got two more spare I can use on the other side. So I'll just see if I can get that corner a bit more square, I suppose. You know what, I don't think I'm going to play around with that too much more. Pull that out, yeah. See if I can get that blue to line up and green a bit better. So that's pretty good. The convergence on that's good. The geometry is not 100%, but I'm not worried about the geometry. Convergence annoys me more than geometry. So I think that's pretty good there. Let's see if I can stick that down just where I had it. There. How's that look? The corner does, I mean, it's just that little one square here that's the problem. The other ones are all square. It's just this one here that maybe, but the corner convergence there is 100% better. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to do the other side now. I'll tape that, and then we'll play some games and whatnot on it and give it a proper run through. So here we go. I'm going to throw the first test strip in to see if we can tidy up this blue. So that's, I forgot to put it under Deatils coil again. Silly me. That's, oh, I've hit the spot right there. Right there. It's pretty bloody good first go. Oh, I'm pretty happy with that. That's a good result first go. I don't think I'm going to get it much better than that. You know, one side took 3 test strips, the other side didn't, or took 1. So yeah, that's a pretty good result. I'll take that. I'm not sure how that looks on the camera, but that looks, I mean, there's the slightest tinge of blue there. And even if I probably just adjusted the H-stat, so for the H-stat's usually found on the neck board, and I might be able to get it a little bit better. Looks all right there. The H-stat just does similar to what those convergence strips did. It's just an adjustment on the neck board. I'm pretty happy with that. That looks really good. So done. There's the convergence fixed. So quickly, I'm just going to do an RGB composite comparison. This is in composite. That's in RGB. You can see how much crisper it is. Composite, RGB. Look at the two. Composite, RGB. Look at the lettering. How washed out that looks. RGB, that looks fantastic. So there we are, successful RGB mod. Couple of things to note about this one, this CRT in particular. One, it has a VM board. So that's a vertical modulation board. I didn't pick it up at first, but what I found is it creates a ghosting image. So it's like an image on top of an image. To turn that off, and you will need to turn it off, otherwise you'll get that issue. I'll just jump around to the front. Hopefully you can pick this up what happens. So I'll just jump into the service menu. In the service menu, and what you're looking for is something I think it's called VMD. So it's quite a way through. I'll just scroll through all the settings. VZM. HCML. DVM. So it's number 47 on this particular one. And if I turn that on, you see there, I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera, but it creates like a double picture. So turn that off, make sure you save that. Otherwise you're going to have a really weird picture. So don't forget to do that. It's only on chassis that have these VM boards, and you can tell straight away when you open it up that it has one, because there's actually two boards up near the neck. Quite a big board sits sort of underneath the neck, and then there's obviously the neck board itself. So just keep that in mind. If you do come across that problem, you'll need to turn that VDM off. The second one is what I found with this mod, and I hadn't picked it up before in any other mods that I've done very similar to this, with very similar chassis in it. This one actually had the RGB lines terminated with 150 ohm resistors to ground already. Now when I put my 75 ohm resistor termination, it created, rather than have 75 ohms to ground, it was actually 50 ohms, because, and I don't know the whole mathematics behind this, I'll get my head around it, but just speaking to Mark from the Shmups forum, he showed me the calculation. If I put a 75 ohm resistor and the 150 ohm resistor in series, I actually create a 50 ohm termination to ground. Now what I should have done is put 150 ohm resistor to ground, or 150 ohm resistor in series, sorry, and it would have created a 75 ohm termination to ground. Now having said that, having a chat with Mark, he sort of said just leave it, 50 ohm should be fine, and it is. He's done it before and left it and had no issues. So I've just left it as is, so it does have a 50 ohm termination to ground instead of a 75 ohm termination to ground. Other than that, the mod was pretty straightforward. So that's it, guys. Mod's finished. I've just turned a scrap CRT that was destined for the dump or the tip, never to be seen again, probably squashed and recycled somewhere. Saved it, and it's turned out to be a wonderful CRT. Yes, it took a little bit of work. Now look, granted, I didn't have to do the whole convergence thing. You know, I could have left it, not a problem. But I thought while I'm here, I'll do it properly and try and get it as good as I can. So it was a good experience for me, because this is probably the worst one I've had with those convergence problems, and to see it fixed was quite rewarding. So as I find more CRTs on the curbside, I'll do more RGB mods. It doesn't take very long. I've only spent probably, I mean, I've done it over the course of 2 or 3 days, but all up, stopping and starting, it's probably only taken me an hour or two to actually do the physical work. If you don't like the RCA's on the side, you can do them on the back. You've just got to work out some way of having it pluggable, because if you ever have to remove the back cover, then you really don't, unless you're going to make the RGB lines really long, then yeah, you're going to have to sort of have a plug for it. But so that's why I've done them on the side, and you know, I think it's pretty neat there. But as I said, this is the end of the video. I'll throw up some photos now, so if you just want to hang around, you'll see some composite versus RGB photos and what the difference is. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.